Welcome to the Vocation of the Business Leader podcast. I'm Greg Balstert. Here we explore how Catholic leaders let Christ and the teachings of the church he started guide their work, integrating faith and business. Each episode offers inspiring stories to help you live an undivided life. Thank you for joining us. Let's meet our guest, Jimmy Coleman. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Happy to, yeah. Thanks for having me. Let's see. My wife is Morgan, and she by the way, is a convert to the faith as of Easter of not this year, but of 2023. So that's been really fun. That was partially a product of me really going on with my faith 3 years ago. Happy to share more about that. I have Cassius turned 3 in July. Lucius will be 2 in December, and Gemma is about a month and a half old. So they're all about a year and a half is the pace is our current pace, and that's a ton of fun. I own I still have ownership in a company called Lead Baller, which is a marketing agency I've run for the past 5 years, but it's going from priority number one work wise to for the most part, more out of sight, out of mind. The thing I'm really going all in with is Arimathea. I'm the chief growth officer of Arimathea, a Catholic financial company that is helping good Catholic people and institutions, stop funding evil things like abortion and pornography and slave labor and all those things. So happy to go into that too. I also have a nonprofit technically that incorporates running and prayer and adoration for the Eucharist.
That's excellent. Okay. So have you always been this bold in your faith? And if
Nope.
not, what changed?
Sure. Well, definitely my wife telling me that she's pregnant changed things a little bit. I did grow up in a good Catholic household. I didn't have a very good excuse to not be bold in my faith. But I guess I just kind of chose not to for a while, and didn't make God the priority. Definitely made money the priority at certain times, or maybe I was in school, it was sports or something. It was never school, that's for sure. But yeah, so yeah, my wife told me that she's pregnant. Made it was a big deal, and I started thinking about a lot of things. Right, you think about all the good things, but you also think about, all right, where am I lacking? How where did I think that I would be when I was a father, and like in a financial sense, or as a provider, as a handyman, or as a really strong guy that can beat up the bad guys, or whatever. And one of those things, yeah, is a spiritual leader of the household. And I definitely didn't feel equipped for that at the time. I really never talked to God in front of anyone else. So praying before meals with my new wife at the time, right, it was actually a really hard thing for me to do. We lived right across the street from a Catholic church, like dream scenario. We could walk to church. We didn't go. So that's where I was at the time that she told me that she was pregnant. And yeah, it kind of kicked me in the butt to get ready to do a lot of things. But within the confines of my faith, I didn't want to just give my children whatever was convenient for me. Like if I to raise them up as Catholic or Protestant or whatever wouldn't have been hard, because, well, that's what my family. If I wouldn't have to change, my friend group. It's good for business around here. I'm in the Bible Belt, so it's like, you get deals done if by claiming that you're a Christian around here, right? So, so it's just very convenient. But I also saw that it's not always going to be that convenient either, and so again, but I wanted to give them a basis of right and for wrong, from something that was well thought out. And so I finally scratched that itch of addressing all these barriers that were in the way of me wanting to go all in. Because I am the kind of person, I do like going all into things, but I have to be convicted in it first. And I wasn't even sure whether God really existed or not. So I had to scratch that itch. And part of what helped that doing it in a way where I'm not just finding the information in the echo chamber. Because again, I wanted to go all in, and therefore I needed to make sure I was looking at both sides of the argument very fairly. Going into that argument, I figured that if I were to look at logical conversations about this, that it would lead towards God not being real, because that's kind of what society maybe says about God nowadays, is that
Yeah.
there's less intelligent people. God is for less intelligent people, maybe, or something.
Right.
But really, my gosh, I was really surprised that that logic certainly leads toward there being a creator, and uh, as a matter of fact, if you were to try to maybe come to a different conclusion once presented with the evidence, it it's it seems as if you're either angry at God, or you're running away from authority. That's what I've noticed. A lot of people, even like people that love being spiritual, um, they don't want to have. There's that saying, they want the grandfather that loves them but doesn't tell them what to do, instead of a father, right?
Right.
So, anyways, I thought that was really interesting. I became very convicted in this, and I'm happy to go into more detailed reasons why at some point, if it's relevant. From there, it's like, okay, well, who is God? And one shortcut is whether or not the resurrection happened, because
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is either a liar, lunatic, or Lord, right? So
Yep.
if he rose from the dead, um, then yeah, he's Lord. But do I really believe that he, like a human, rose from the dead? And again, I was like, going into this, I was thinking, I want this to be true, but I logically, can I be presented with the evidence and come to the conclusion that this is likely what happened? And I was again surprised to find out that, yeah, I really am convicted that the resurrection did happen. My favorite part, there's a lot of evidence for that, but my favorite thing is looking at people that witnessed his resurrection and were converted because of it. That's like, those are the coolest stories to me. From there, it's like, okay, well, I believe in Christianity, but what flavor? Who got it right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the Eucharist. I didn't even intentionally look for the Eucharist. It actually kind of just showed up as a more of a recommendation, and that's one where I was so Protestant at the time that I was actually kind of thinking, you know, um, I don't think that the evidence will point to Jesus being truly present in the Eucharist, and I don't really care if it is or isn't. And what I mean by that is, like, I kind of am okay with it, not with Christ not being in the Eucharist. I'm maybe more biased towards the Protestant view on that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, I was overwhelmed with, obviously the historical argument. I mean, come on, like the first 1,500 years of Christianity, it was a unified view that Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. Like, that's one again. If you came to the conclusion that God exists using the same logic, you present with the evidence, and it's like, okay, it's much more reasonable to land on that one. And then you're presented with the evidence for Jesus being truly present in the Eucharist, and you pick that he isn't. It's like there's probably some bias in there. It's the only logical thing I can think of. So, um, and at that point, I'm sold, and I just need, and I'm like ready. I'm charged up, right? I got all this energy, but I'm like, oh, how do I do this? How do I go all in? What does that look like? Especially as someone that's a business leader, and Greg, the way that we know each other is through Sent Ventures. I would say that Sent Ventures was huge in me applying my faith as a business owner. And okay, because like I want God to be number one in all parts of my life. I don't want to just go to work and then put him in a box and then do my thing. Like, if God is God, then he has to be number one in everything. And how do I do that without, like, I have this team of like 30 plus people? Do I like just pull a bait and switch on them and all of a sudden just paint Jesus on everything? And I was trying to figure that part out, and it was really helpful for me to have other business leaders that I respected that were already in the process of doing that. And that was huge. Pints of Aquinas was really huge for me. Just on my own time, I run a lot, so I would pop that in on my runs and get understand the faith better. So I started praying more and learning that, wow, prayer actually works. I'd never really believed it until a few years ago, really, that prayer actually, when someone says, when someone has a problem and they say, and I say, how can I help? And they say, pray for me. I'm like, yeah, but how can I really help you? And now it's like, yeah, that really is the best thing, give it to God. So, um, hopefully that's not too long of a story there.
Oh no, that's fantastic. So, what's your wife's faith background?
Yeah. She was great. She's actually baptized Catholic, but her family, her mom's side of the family is her grandparents are like first generation Italians in the U.S. and their faith is strong and important to them. That their children, I would say, for the most part, are uh, latched on to some of the tradition. I feel like the Catholic faith makes them feel closer to their parents, but they're not practicing Catholics, and so Morgan went to um, like a Baptist private school, and everything was Protestant, but by the time we were dating, whenever she would ask me about Catholicism, it always sounded like it was very skeptical, and so I kind of got tired of answering some of these questions because it's always just trying to like poke holes, and but eventually I actually started. Well, I guess I never really realized until afterwards that because one day she surprised me at dinner and said, "Hey, I reached out to see if I could be a part of RCIA," and I was like, "What do you mean?" When she said that, it just came out of nowhere. But reflecting upon it, all these times that she's, in quotes, poking holes in Catholicism, she was actually curious, and it's a big lesson learned that whenever I'm confronted with someone who um, they are seemingly trying to poke holes in my faith, I think that they're kind of hopeful that I'm going to give them a good answer, actually, oftentimes. And so that was a neat lesson learned by that. But yeah, just one day. I mean, this is probably, again, huge endorsement for Scent. I'm the number one Scent fanboy, by the way. Uh, I It was probably 5 or 6 months after being a part of Scent that she just told me that at dinner one night, and even then so like by Christmas I had got her tons of rosaries and things like that, and she was like, "Hey, all right, I'm not you need to cool off a little bit." But now she like that's the best kind of stuff. She just told me this morning for Christmas she wants a Bible with Mary on the cover, and like her and Mary are super close, and the reason our daughter's name is Gemma is literally because she was having dreams and encounters with Saint Gemma of Galgani. And yeah, it's just she loves her Catholic faith and loves praying the Rosary, and kneels before the Eucharist, even though we don't have kneelers at our parish and stuff, and an awesome Catholic mom. And I just would have never predicted that when we got married. I would have never predicted that. So, but that is the power of prayer, because my part in that was me doing my own thing, me going all in myself, and her seeing the fruit of that, and the value that I'm getting from that. Um, Me praying for her, and then in my discussions, whenever it would come up, because we were trying to figure out how we're gonna guide our children, what values we're gonna give them, and when I would share the background behind my stance on something, I would just mention that it's because of my Catholic faith that I feel that way, and which it wasn't ever me trying to cram it down her throat. It's just more of like, hey, this is where this is coming from, and it was always a very like, not always, not all my arguments are well thought out, but the times that it had the best effect on her is when I had a well thought out stance on something that came from a product of me going all into my Catholic faith, and I think that inspired her to um, start searching for the truth more intentionally too.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Um, that you were leading, but you were not coercing, or you're letting her in her own time, which is
I hope so. Sometimes
yeah.
I don't know. I do this with Scent too. I do this with other things. And if I'm excited about something, I do tend to just cram it down people's throats a little bit. But in my mind, I did a good job of that. I did a good job of like playing it cool. But maybe she could jump on this podcast and say something different. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like that she's all in as well. So,
Yeah,
which is what a blessing.
it is.
And so you're in Charlotte, and it sounds like Charlotte is on fire.
It's a good place to be a Catholic. I'm realizing. So I mean, we got St. Matt's is the largest congregation in the U.S. But within the city of Charlotte, we have St. Mark, which is the most attended in all of our dioceses. So, like on paper, you got St. Matt's. That's the biggest one, but even St. Mark has more people coming in it. So that says a lot about that. And then in between, you got like St. Anne, which is you walk in there and it's a time capsule. It's an amazing traditional parish. There's some more nationally known priests. Father Kirby's not too far away here. But then think of employers, like you also have the Catholic Company. CEO of that is James Hetzel. You have Tan Books with Connor Gallagher. That's all in town. You have the St. Joseph Seminary. We cranked out 50 plus priests this past year. And this is just normal, I guess, around here. And then I'm sharing this with people here and there, and they're baffled by that. It's like 10xing what happened in their diocese.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing how awesome that is. And after visiting the seminary, I'm not surprised at all. If every male was required to, at the age of 18, there's like a draft to just visit that seminary that we have over here, we would have no shortage of priests. It's just such an awesome place there. So yeah, we have, and part of my goal is they're all kind of like parceled out. It's a little bit all over the place. And I so badly want to raise my family in an amazing Catholic environment. Just have so many examples for them to look at to outweigh all the other, more worldly examples, people chasing pleasures of the world. And so I'm that's part of my motivation behind creating a Sent Local here and maybe having some of this Adoration Run Club thing happen. I don't know, but yeah, we are in a good place to raise a Catholic family.
Yeah. So you've had lead baller for, would you say, 5 years?
Yeah, I started it in 2019.
Okay.
Yep.
And so when you had your, I guess, reversion, what changed as you operating it and your interaction with your employees? What changed there?
Yeah, and looking back on it, by the way, I have this list of regrets because there are things I could have done better. I think that my employees could have benefited greater than they did from having a CEO that is so all in with their faith. There's a lot of room for improvement, but again, I tried to do my best of first and foremost being a light myself whenever I could. So updating the LinkedIn profile, like incorporating my faith on there, and whenever I post about something, not shying away from that, or like my pronouns are I love Jesus, or on our website. Literally it's a secular marketing company, right? Half of our website is me talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
yeah, and I had to figure out a way to like get down with it. Or here's another one. So like Good Friday this past year, I'd let people know that, hey, you're off today, not because it's like spring break and it's time to make viral videos for the internet. It's the day that Jesus Christ is crucified, and uh, and I gave him this podcast about the Shroud of Turin that talked about the crucifixion, and I said, hey, like I basically just expressed the importance of them coming to the conclusion whether Jesus actually rose from the dead or not. Because if he did, it needs to be the priority in everyone's life, and if it didn't, then it proves the most popular religion ever on the planet wrong, and that changes a lot of things. So, might be a good use of your time on this day off to listen to this podcast or something, like things like that, or giving context. Again, same thing with my conversations with Morgan. We're making decisions for our family. We're making decisions for our business. Explaining my Catholic faith as the reason for whatever decision being made. So and again, some of this stuff was really difficult. There was times where I was praying in front of the team, and that's a really hard thing for me. Even now, like especially if that's not the context in which I know people,
Mhm.
that can be a hard thing for me to do. I'm still getting used to the freestyle prayers um, that aren't just in my head. Um, but yeah, it's a slow burn. I think people maybe first and foremost just saw it from me and how I'm carrying myself and my basis for morality, um, and then yeah, just being in meetings and basing my decision making off of my Catholic faith. Those are the main things that come to mind. And
Mhm.
then when I made Jesus half of our website, that's kind of me just taking a chance and seeing if I get any hate from from any employees or anything. And there, that's where I needed some help from some people that are already doing it, because I was like, hey, I want to just like paint the whole walls, right, with Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. But I do know that people have done things like this in the past, and that their interaction with Christianity was a negative one because of how someone at their work acted that was Christian or that is Christian. And so I didn't want to make people run away either, but I wanted
Mhm.
to also not be apologetic about my faith at the same
Right.
time. It's
Right.
it's a bit of a threading of the needle.
So when you did the on Good Friday and you sent that out, what feedback did you get from your employees?
Yeah, it's a good question. Some of them just didn't say anything. Maybe they watched it, maybe they didn't, and they just didn't comment on it. And we have people in our company, by the way, that are Jewish, Muslim, and indifferent, and Protestant, and all kinds of things. So we really had almost the full spectrum, and I put that in there anyways, and um, yeah, I mean, it's on Slack, so I don't know. Some people are commenting on it and saying nice things. I guess that is all I can remember, and then a lot of positive emoji reactions and things. Another one that I just thought of is when we would hire people, I would put in the job description after I was saying all the requirements of the person. I would let them know that, hey, the people who own the company, my business partner is Protestant, so the people who own the company are Christian, and that is the basis of our decision making. So, and I would express that no one who joins our company has to be Christian in order to work here, but um, they do need to be aware of, like, that's how we make decisions around here. So, and
Hmm.
if that's great news to you, then awesome. If that's really bad news, then do what you want with that information. But that's how we operate. So I would put it out there for that reason. And I even said that, like, it's my hope that um, by you by you joining our company, that it increases your chances of getting into heaven because you're around more faith-filled people. And
Yeah.
I openly said those things. So I was very mindful about being HR compliant and whatever. But when Chick-fil-A has people apply to work for Chick-fil-A, they're getting a certain batch of people, because everyone knows what Chick-fil-A stands for. That's the other piece too, is I didn't want to keep getting requests to do work. I didn't want to use the gifts that God gave me to perpetuate evil.
Hmm.
And ideally, no one even asked. And there's times when they did. There's one guy talking about he's trying to brag about how one of his mentors and business partners was the former CEO of Playboy, and I had to just send him a follow up and say, hey man, if that's who leads your organization, I don't want to help you guys. I had to say stuff like that. But for the most part, I didn't even get asked, which is nice.
Hmm. I saw that letter that one of your employees sent on your LinkedIn profile, and how that she is feels so blessed to be working there, and that she's making enough money that she can take her family to church every Sunday. And I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's
Yeah, that was humbling. That's in the middle of me complaining about a lot of my own situation and how I always want to be further ahead and whatever else. And then she sends me this message saying that because, she wasn't able to at her past employer, but because we pay her enough, she's able to afford Well, I'm not even sure if they have a car. This is people in the Philippines.
Mm,
It's just a different lifestyle.
mm,
So like they can pay for the taxi to get to church every week.
mm,
Because initially she said that she's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like because this, I can go to church every week." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she explained further
mm.
where the money goes and like the logistics involved. And I was just blown away. And then similar with her son's birthday party and stuff, and it is very meaningful. And I guess too that yeah, being a part of a company like ours, she knows that's something that we stand for, and maybe that encouraged her as well. But yeah, that happened on her own accord. That she's using extra money to find a way to get her family to church, which is really
Yeah.
neat. Yeah.
So you can safely say that your integration of your faith in your work uh, did not cause a mass exodus of all your employees, which probably a lot of the people who are living a divided life are afraid of. You know that they're gonna lose all their employees or get sued, or I mean, you don't need to preach, but you.
I would love to comment on that. If yeah,
Oh
so
yeah.
because even if they did, then what? You know, like there's people that have been martyred, killed
Mm-hmm.
for their faith. And I hear people say all the time, "Oh, I can't do that because I work at this company or whatever else." Like, okay, so you do it, then you get fired, then what? You know, like, and then you just keep asking the question, then what? Then what? Then what? Then what? Is like, are they going to rob your soul or something? Because at the end, if you truly are a Christian and this life is short and there's an eternal life waiting for you, then a lot of those things, it's like, it's who cares, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
to be fair, you usually need someone to tell you that or to remind you that. It's most of us when we're put in that situation and we're backed into a corner. Um, I'm guilty of that as well. Like I need someone to hold my hand and walk me through that and remind me that, hey, like there's no eternal life waiting for you. But yeah, I mean, making certain decisions and you'll notice that when I was apprehensive, it was more of like I wanted to make sure that I wasn't scaring people away from Christianity. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as them quitting my company, um, like I wasn't really as concerned about that because, yeah, I don't know. Like again, that's just a short term. That's a problem that I can solve.
Mm-hmm.
God is the number one is number one. So that's just the piece of advice I would tell anybody anywhere um, is then what? Is like keep asking that question. And is it worse than living a life where you're not putting your faith number one? And the answer is absolutely no every time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So tell me about Adoration Ultra. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah. So at the same time that I just was going on with my faith, something I used to say all the time is that children, they come into this world and the size of their dreams are ginormous. There's nothing holding them back. They pick the coolest thing you could possibly think of. That's what they want to do. They would be an astronaut, president, professional athlete, whatever. And then eventually over time, they are just surrounded by people who gave up on their hopes and dreams, and they normalize failure and
Mm-hmm.
the type of failure where you don't keep trying. And I didn't want to be an example of that to my children. I'm thinking ahead to my son asking me, as he's like, really excited and about whatever he wants to do when he grows up. And he's like, "Dad, what did you want to do when you grew up?" And for me to have an answer that's like not a good one, right? Because the thing I wanted to do is be a professional athlete. And I guess over time just kind of ran out. Like I quit on it, but I didn't. Like I just stopped. I'm a college dropout, so I didn't really um, play sports in college, and then I just applied my competitive nature to business. Was really what happened. Um, so I decided that, hey, what if I were to re-pursue being a professional athlete? What would that look like? And what is even a professional athlete? Like, okay, someone's paying them, but I have some friends that would throw me some extra money to say that so I can say I'm a professional athlete. Like, what is it truly? And so I set some rules in place for myself where there's a certain athletic achievement that I had to accomplish, and then there's also a monetary achievement that I have to accomplish in order to achieve this. Um, and Along the way, I'll try to keep it short, but I started doing ultra marathons, where an ultra marathon is anything more than a marathon, anything more than 26.2 miles. So
Okay.
for me, that's been over 100 miles. That's been 50 miles, 50 Ks, whatever. I did this one where I broke the record at this. It's like a 24-hour race and everything. But I decided to once I broke this record, I was like, okay, I feel like I've accomplished something like a certain athletic tier. Now I need to like turn it into a thing. I need to have a theme, and that way people watch it and it prints money and all that. So I decided, well, what if I did this thing called 5 ultras in 5 months? So I picked 5 different ultra marathons, and we document them, and we do 5 within 5 months. And the first one, actually, a lot of the guys from Scent on there. John Cannon was a part of it. Thad from Fuzati was our driver, and we had some bus of Catholic guys doing the Blue Ridge Relay here in the mountains of North Carolina. And then the next one was a 50-mile trail race. That was a repeat of the first one I had ever done the year before. And then just due to some bad coordination and bad planning, I had to cram the last 3 into the last 30 days.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so I did this last man standing kind of thing. I got second place. The way they format it is like a 1.1 mile loop. And the first mile you have 16 minutes to do it, and then the next one you have 15:50, and then 15:40, and so on and so. Or eventually you got to be going really fast, 40 plus miles in, and the other guys just faster than me after that period of time. So
Wow.
by a few seconds, I got second place. And then the next one I did a solo. I did a solo 50K in the nature, and we're filming and documenting all with drones and whatever else. It's really cool.
Wow.
And the last one, I wanted to find a way to incorporate my faith. And, throughout all the other ones, I'm praying ahead of time and everything. But I wanted it to be a real um, all in documentation of my faith, and bringing attention to my faith. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? I started asking friends, and one guy mentioned this idea of visiting different parishes in Charlotte, like running to them. And we're like, okay, we could do mass, but no, because you have to fast an hour before receiving the Eucharist, and that wouldn't work doing an ultra marathon. And I started thinking, every time I say thinking, you can replace it with praying too. But what is the most valuable thing that I could possibly draw attention to? If it's like one message, right? And it's the Eucharist. It's what brought me back to Catholicism. And my gosh, if when I talk to my Protestant friends about it, like they don't even know what the Eucharist is. So it's not even that they're rejecting the true presence. It's that the option hasn't even been put out there, that the conversation hasn't been had. So, and what would the world look like, man, if we had a unified Christianity? Like there's certain pro-life things that are really important to bring attention to, but I mean, survey the people who believe in the true presence of the Eucharist, and whether they like are pro-life or not. like
Right.
the Eucharist is like, that's the first domino. If you get that one, everything else just really seems to fall into place. So I'm putting the map together, and I'm like, okay, I know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run from adoration to adoration all over Charlotte. That's what's gonna happen. And the map I used got changed over and over again, but eventually I found the map, and I realized, wow, I'm going to be covering a lot of ground in Charlotte. I'm zigzagging all over it, and it'd be a shame for the people that I'm running past in person. Like we're going to document this and hopefully turn into a film, but it'd be a shame for the people I'm running around don't know why I'm running. So how can I evangelize even more? I could have a huge flag, right? Like just like if you ever been to a college football game and those male cheerleaders have these ginormous flags that are yanking them back and everything, and it's like, okay, well, what if I had a flag? What would I put on it? And I thought maybe I could just advertise the Eucharistic Revival and put eucharisticrevival.com or something. There needs to be a call to action. I wanted people running by for them to open up their phone, open up a Bible, whatever else. So, I started praying about it. I was like, oh, if I'm going to do this, I should probably pray about this because I don't know the answer to this question. I opened up the Bible, Um, and the phrase like "eats my flesh, drinks my blood" was there. It's like, wow,
Mm.
that's actually very clear. um, so eat my flesh, drink my blood. That's very clear. And if I were to put that on a flag, that would certainly grab some attention. Be
Mhm.
pretty provocative. And as a call to action, I could just have the context of like the Bible verse at the bottom,
Mhm.
and so people can be like, "Wait, what? Drink my blood?" And then um, open up the Bible and say, "Oh yeah, that's really there."
Right.
And why am I bringing attention to that? And so, and it, it's gotten some pretty viral reactions on Reddit, as you can imagine too. But when this happened, it got covered by EWTN, OSB, Catholic News Agency, a bunch of Catholic radio stations and things. Just all the big ones. Catholic Vote, Catholic, or the Loop is the other one. Yeah. So it got everyone covered it pretty much, and a lot of big social media posts around it. It was awesome, and a little community formed out of this too, where now there's other people that like to run and also love the Eucharist, and I've turned into a nonprofit profit because of that. Still trying to figure out what we're going to do, but what I think would be cool is just that I don't have the capacity to do all of this. Is what if every parish, just skipping ahead to the future, what if I just snap my fingers, and at every parish there's a group of people that one time a week spend 30 minutes at adoring the Eucharist and then go for a run together.
Mhm.
And that was just like a weekly habit, because it's a very small group of people that actually attend Eucharistic adoration on a regular basis. It's a very small group of people that even know people that attend Eucharistic adoration, even on a regular basis or not on a regular basis. Because again, most Christians don't even that I interact with don't even know what the Eucharist is, and so just by getting people more in the habit of adoring the Eucharist, and it's like, hey guys, what are you guys looking at? What are you adoring? Like, what's going on here? It's a great conversation starter. Obviously, the power of prayer that happens during adoration. And by the way, the times that I hear God more than any other time is when I'm in Eucharistic adoration and when I'm running. And it's
Mhm.
also a great form of
Mhm.
penance. And just like how fasting is a good form of penance, and so it's a beautiful thing to intertwine together. I would love that to become a reality. If anyone's listening and they want to help with that and just help me run it, I'm happy to be like an advisor to that. I'm just struggling
Mhm.
with the capacity to. I
Mhm.
have other things I got to be more all in with, that are worthy of that focus.
Yeah. So tell me about Arimathea investing.
Yeah, that's a really cool story, because 2 years ago, I'm in a Cent cohort. So if people don't understand what that is, again, Cent Ventures, the community for Catholic founders and CEOs. Check it out. And part of what they do is they have these cohorts, these groups of, let's say, 7 or 8 people, that do calls together every other week. And we talk about one call could look like this: each person going around the horn, sharing what's going right, what's going wrong, just personally, some highlights there. Then we might have someone like Mother Teresa as a case study, like, hey, how do we build our companies the similar way that Mother Teresa started her movement? What can we
Mhm.
learn from her? What can we learn from her and other saints? And then the rest of the call, there might be 45 minutes left, and we're putting someone on the hot seat, and getting to understand their business and the problem that we can help them solve. Well, it was a guy named Daniel Catone's turn on the hot seat, and he had to do the short version of explaining the financial industry and all that's corrupt with it, and and then his solution to that. So, problem is that you've probably heard people say follow the money, right? So as a
Mhm.
father, when I'm trying to shield my family and protect my family from all of the crap that's being thrown at them from the world, all the things on TV and just the agendas of these companies. And I'm also wondering, I don't even think these companies really care about homosexuality, global warming. I can tell I'm trying to, like, they're trying to manipulate here, but they don't actually like believe in these things, or they don't actually really care.
Right.
So why are they doing it? I just don't understand. As a consumer, I just didn't understand that. Then Daniel explains ESG, right? And how
Mm.
basically it is so profitable for companies. They just print money every time they put up one of these commercials of a trans person shaving or something like that, and it's just a very profitable thing. So his solution is to make Catholic values more profitable, essentially, and make those values less. And one of the ways that he discussed doing that is first researching what companies are doing things that go against Catholic social teaching, and making it possible to screen them out of your investment portfolio. And keep in mind, it's not like there's companies like Public Square, which are great, that help you um, not shop at companies that are doing things that contradict your faith and your beliefs. But it's a whole other thing to own stock in a company. You have ownership of that company. Like, would you
Right.
own a company that is funding abortion? You certainly wouldn't, but you probably are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they have amazing research. At the highest tier, there's information that is publicly reported to like the SEC or whatever. Then there's another layer of research, which is like scanning articles, maybe from the companies, and their maybe like their HR reports that show what they do in certain situations. That's still public information, just maybe less obvious. But then there's a third layer of research that these guys are doing, where they're like going undercover. And what I mean by that is like calling some of these companies that maybe have gotten past the initial screening process, but then calling them and saying, hey, yeah, if we were to place an employee at your company and they wanted to get an abortion, would you be open to paying for their abortion travel?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is yes, and sometimes it's like a very enthusiastic yes, then we say, okay, thank you, and hang up the phone and take them off the list. That's just a level that other people might not be willing to do. Or we found that Microsoft was funding Planned Parenthood more indirectly. They were channeling the money through United Way chapters, only the ones that uh, fund Planned Parenthood. And we'd watch the money go from Microsoft, United Way, and Planned Parenthood all in the same month. It's like the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like just a lot of heavy investigating and research going on there. And then you're left with a list of companies that you can then invest in. And then they're also working on a voting system, so these companies are made aware of that. Hey, there's this group of people that are not going to give you their money if you continue to do these things and actually create a change in the market. So
Mm-hmm.
I just saw that being like there's a war going on, right? At the center you have human dignity, and I think we're already aware of all the forces against that. And then there's forces for that, such as grandmas praying the rosary all day long. There's a whole army of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Mm-hmm.
doing amazing work. We really need that, because if people's hearts aren't changed, um, then what we're doing is just people find workarounds, I guess, right? Then you have my friend Jacob Ciccarelli, who you've interviewed. He's helping people with the intellectual side of things, right, and then come to Christ that way. And on our end, we're like the financial branch of the military, if you will, and we're fighting that the resistance by um, uh, making Catholic values profitable. So um, I was joking with you before the call. I'm in a sea of highly accomplished finance and tech nerds. I'm the cool marketing guy, is the joke I keep making, even if I was in front of them. But you have Daniel Catone, who he built a $4.5 billion AUM financial company, 75 advisors on that team. He just stepped down as the CEO of that company to go all in with Arimathea. You got Andrew DeBerry, former head of
Mm-hmm.
AI monetization at Meta and AWS and some other things. Smart guy, really smart guy.
Yeah.
The list goes on, and we have a dream team here. But it's cool because Daniel and I were friends. He, myself, and a couple other guys, like we just stayed in really good touch. At the St. Conference, he and I would be the ones hanging out and things, and now we're business partners, and I'm very fired up about the mission that we're on. So
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds like God's work.
it is.
Um,
Thank you.
mhm. um, So, what advice would you have for any listeners out there that's hesitant or doesn't know how to integrate their faith in work life?
Yeah, I mean, one, I feel like what I ended up doing was I just kept pumping myself with a ridiculous amount of conviction to where eventually it just like spill it over, like I just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't contain it anymore. And then you just kind of figure it out and you deal with the punches along the way. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say maybe, just a brute force of just like continuously increasing your conviction, and
Mm-hmm.
your love for Christ. I mean, at some point, like you start really loving Jesus, and it, you can't put him in a box anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's more of like a yeah. The question just almost starts to dissipate because
Mm-hmm.
you just can't do it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't put it. You make it impossible to put him in a
Mm-hmm.
box. So
Right.
that's one strategy. Um, Along the way, though, I guess there are these moments of, and I'm still going through this, of I'm in a conversation with someone, they know nothing about my faith or whatever, and I maybe give God the credit for something good that happened. Or the solution to a problem is to pray. Or when I'm saying bye to someone, saying God bless. Or, you guys see, I have my crucifix and my Bible in the background, that hopefully makes it a little bit of, it plants a seed, right? And people know where I stand. And it makes so it's not such a shock to the. I don't feel like I'm about to shock anyone when I say the words that are coming out of my mouth. People already know.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in those moments, it's like you just do it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
scary because maybe you haven't been identified as the Catholic guy or anything like that up to this point, and so you don't know what it's like when people start pegging you as that guy or that girl, and it's a new version of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't dealt with people calling you these things,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to adjust to, and then you just do it anyways. That's the thing I have to remind myself when I'm doing these ultra marathons, is like sometimes I'm very grateful, sometimes I'm like talking to God, and other times it's just, this really really sucks, do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So that my I guess my two pieces of advice would be to just keep pumping yourself up with conviction, through prayer, through finding. I really love Punch Aquinas has done a good job of giving me a lot of conviction in my faith. Um, Also, I have a whole notes thing in my library. However, people want to contact me if they want me to send that to them, I'm happy to do that. Where it has debates between theists versus atheists and things, because it's good hearing the other side of the argument, hearing how
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they sound really smart, and but then you get someone asking like more of the comment. Like I remember, all right, so the most famous, probably the most famous atheist right now is Richard Dawkins. Oh man, yeah. I mean, Ben Stein was interviewing him one time, and he was saying, so how does life come from non-life? Very fair question to ask. Very common question too. That's one of the most common questions they must get.
Mm-hmm.
And he started going off about how there might be aliens that created life on Earth or something, and but then obviously it's like, well, who created these aliens? It's
Right.
like you start hearing some of these arguments, like, and you're pleasantly surprised. Like, oh wow, these guys are not the smartest guys in the room. Um, so I would even say start challenging your faith and just becoming more and more convicted. And then also in those moments when you're taking a leap of like starting to talk about Jesus and starting to pray in front of people, and you just do it anyways. It's gonna feel uncomfortable, and you just do
Mm-hmm.
it anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of these atheists, they don't like God's management style when it gets down to it. They don't want to conform to the morality, and they don't like his management style. And so,
The sin of Satan, right? Like Satan
yeah,
think he can do it better, kind of
yeah,
thing.
hmm
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Um, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to talk about, or
You covered all the bases, man. I mean, yeah, it's been a really fun journey over the past few years. I will say that one lesson I'm in the middle of learning right now is now I am the Catholic guy to a lot of people,
Hmm.
and I'm being asked to, like, we have our Sent Local thing coming up, and that's like a Catholic thing, or the Adoration Ultra, and we just did a thing on that, or even Arimathea is a very Catholic company now, so everything I'm doing is very Catholic. And um, there's a priest that recently got into a lot of trouble, and when they were asking him, like, what happened, he said, I just stopped praying. And
Mm.
um, I'm realizing how much more important that is. And by the way, as you start becoming the person that God created you to be, the devil really doesn't like that, and
Right.
there's going to be some obstacles thrown in the way. Let me share this, maybe before we wrap up here. Is the part of the story I didn't share about Arimathea. So I've been running Lead Baller, and we're actually talking to companies about merging or selling to them. And it was just a really rough process. And to the point where I was just so exhausted by it. At one point, I wanted a nice, really big, check and everything. And I just got so exhausted with it. And I said, I remember saying to a lot of friends that if only I could just, I'd be happy to give my clients to a nice home, and um, and just go all in with this company that my friend is starting called Arimathea. I remember saying that. The only obstacle in the way was that Lead Baller had some business debt, not a big deal. It was going to be handled through the exit. But if there's no exit, it's not handled. It's all on me. And it's a little bit of debt for a business and a lot of debt for a person. So that was a thing I was just struggling with. And I realized that I wasn't asking God to handle my most serious problems. I was giving him like the softballs.
Mm.
And out of a lack of faith, I wasn't giving him the ones that I thought he wasn't capable of solving, which is really silly, right? When you come to the conclusion that God
Yeah.
created everything, like the
Right.
universe and everything, and then you don't think he can solve this debt issue or whatever. And and so I said, okay, sorry, God, like, can you please? Because if you could, this is the only barrier in the way of me going all in with this company that's going to really serve you in an amazing way. And I even threw in there, I was like, and I don't usually like ask saints for a lot of help either. So I was
Mm.
like, I looked at Saint Anthony of Padua had something to do with like being the saint of people that have debt or something. And so I was like, and Saint Anthony, if you could pray for this too, that'd be great. And then a few weeks later, on a call with Daniel, and he's like, hey man, so what's in the way of you going all in with Arimathea? And I was like, well, I got this debt. I explained it to him. He's like, well, what if I just bought it? How could that work? Could we? And so we just figured out from there, and now it's gone, right? It's like, and now I'm all in with Arimathea. It's a really cool thing,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
uh, that's one of two recent times where I can recall a prayer being so clearly answered. The other
Mm.
time is actually at the Sent conference a few weeks ago. We were at mass, and then we did adoration. You were probably in the room,
Hmm.
and I'm around all these amazing Catholic people and kind of feeling like a bit of imposter syndrome, actually, and maybe just feeling uncomfortable with, like, all right, should I like fold my hands? Should I like do this? Like, oh, just like
Right.
constantly questioning myself.
Right.
And um, I said, God, I would really love to know if you think I'm doing a good job, like if you're proud of
Mm.
me, and I can't imagine how you could possibly tell me the answer to this question, but it would mean a lot to me if you could. So I asked for that, and then later that day we had the small prayer groups, right? And and someone prayed for me, and then one of the guys said, "Hey, while we were praying for you, Jimmy, I just something just came to mind, and I just need to tell you that God wanted me to let you know that He's really proud of you." Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Hmm.
and he said, like,
Yep.
he's really proud of you. He said you're doing a good job. He like went on about some things, and like that was one of the most clear
Mm.
answered prayers I've ever gotten. It was very cool. So I just want to share those two things, maybe give you guys a little bit of encouragement to
Yeah.
ask God for what you really want.
Amen. Amen. That's a good way to end it. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
so Thank you for joining us today's episode of the Vocation of the Business Leader podcast. We hope you found inspiration as we explore the powerful union of faith and business. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more faith-driven leaders. Until next time, may God guide your work and help you witness His love in all you do. God bless. See you next time.